How do I factor a complex trinomial using decomposition? The first thing we're always going to check for is whether or not I can common factor. In this case, I can't, and I still have a coefficient in front of x squared that's not 1. So similar to simple trinomial factoring, I still want to find two numbers that add and multiply to something. So what are our target numbers? I still want them to add to 10. Okay, coefficient of x. And if they're not in order, please put them in order of x squared, x, and then constants. Now for the multiplication one, however, you need to find two numbers that multiply to the product of a and c, the coefficient of x squared and just c, the constant. So 8 times negative 3 gives me negative 24. So let's start working through those potential numbers. 1 and 24 is an option, but it can't add or subtract to 10. Eventually we make our way to 4 and 6, and we'll double check that. Now that does add to 10. However, it does not multiply to negative 24. So this one's not going to work. If it works for this but not that, that's not good enough. So let's keep searching. Eventually we'll find our way to 12 and 2. I think that might work better. For it to add to 10, we would need to include a negative sign somewhere. We would need a negative 2, and now it adds to positive 10 and multiplies to negative 22. Unlike simple trinomial factoring, so if you are copying, please don't copy this part down. We don't want to just start off with x's at the front. And the reason is if we test that out and we try to expand it with FOIL, there's no way that that x times x will give us our 8x squared. So that's not going to work. So instead what we do, and the reason I say it's called decomposition, is I'm going to decompose, I'm going to break down that 10x term into negative 2x plus 12x, and it's because we wanted to add it to that number. So I'm going to split these up in the next section, and it doesn't matter whether I put a negative 2x first or a 12x first. You could have a switched order. You'd get the same answer. So let me rewrite that whole next step. I'd get 8x squared minus 2x plus 12x minus 3. The next thing we do is we are going to do something called factor by grouping. I like to tell students to underline the first two and the last two, and you're going to do greatest common factor for each of these like they're two separate questions. So for the first two, 2x is a GCF, a greatest common factor, leaving me with 4x minus 1. And in this second section here, 3 is a common factor, so plus 3, leaving me with 4x minus 1. Now, if you've done it correctly, you should have the same binomial in those brackets. That binomial now becomes our new GCF if you consider this and this to be your two terms that I'm looking for what they have in common. So what's common between this term and this term? It's 4x minus 1. So that 4x minus 1 goes in front, and what I have left is this part here and this part here, and they go in that bracket.